Hi, my name is Chris from Journey Beyond, and today we've received some fog lights for our Gladiator from Bicyaco. First thing we have to do is open them up. These are 4-inch LED fog lights that will fit either your JL or your JT. These fog lights already have a pigtail that's installed. We'll see today whether they're going to be plug and play or not. These are the original halogen fog lights that came with our JT. We've updated pretty much every other light on this vehicle to LED, so today these fellows also are getting updated. First thing I need to do is remove those original fog lights. The first thing I want to do that is to disconnect them from their electrical. These original lights right here, it looks like there's a clip or something that you need to pull, but believe it or not, you can just pull these straight out by pressing on this piece right underneath. So there I've gone ahead and I've disconnected that electrical from the fog light.
This is neat, try that.
So when you don't have any written instructions, you've got to figure out as you go what fits what. I need to figure out what will take these bolts off, and that is way too big, and the 6 was too small, so let's hope for the 7.
Which is something nobody ever uses.
Well, of course it's something nobody ever uses.
Might mean that it's a standard size.
It is. It is a 7. Sometimes little hands are helpful. 2 down, 2 to go. There's the light. And here is the other one that got caught up there. That was easier to pull out once I got everything else out. Okay, feels like I've got all of those out. Now that we've got these fog lights off, you can compare them. See, this is your old halogen bulb. This is your new LED bulb. The housing's obviously very different at this point, so we need to go ahead and figure out which of these brackets is going to properly line up with what we've got on our JT. Once we looked at these housings here, you'll see that it looks like there are 2 separate brackets. This top one can just come straight off. This top one says JL on it. Bottom one says L. And when you compare the 2 brackets to the one in the halogen, we need the one marked JT. So we're going to have to switch out that base one with the JT bracket. When you pull those off, you'll see that these lights have been marked as right and left, so you know which one you want to install on which side. But you also have this adjuster right here. That adjuster is going to be in your way for changing out the bracket, so you need to pull that adjuster out so you can change the bracket. Now that bracket comes off easily once you take off the adjuster. Now we need to put the JL bracket on it. So when you're putting these on, you want to make sure that when you've got the DOT on top, that your JL is actually on the bottom, but it reads the same way facing up. Clips on. Now your adjuster is going to go right here. So I've got to compress the spring to go back in there. It's going to be harder than it sounds, I'm sure. So you'll see we finally got the adjuster back in and seated. This is kind of like wrestling with a greased pig, quite frankly, so make sure you've got a little bit of patience while you're doing this. So now we're just going to line these up and see whether or not these brackets are exactly the ones we need right here, and whether it's going to fit. It does go right there. And this bracket has 2 holes at the top and 1 hole at the bottom, so start with the bottom so you know exactly which one on top to use. And know in advance that if you've got your bumper on your vehicle and you're trying to put these lights back in, this is really awkward. I found it a lot easier to start them by hand and then finish them with a tool to tighten them down. Again, small hands, small fingers. sometimes can be a benefit in places like this. Last one. Which will probably be the most miserable one to get in, right? I'd like to think it'll be the easiest, but I don't think I'm that lucky.
For some reason, the last one always seems like it's the most miserable to get back in. And it took a lot of persuasion and perhaps just a couple of vulgarities, but eventually this went in. I did misplace a couple of the bolts falling into the inside of that bumper.
I think it fell in somewhere we may not be able to get to it.
So it would be a wise idea to have some extra hardware, lock washers, and nuts on hand.
All right, now I'm to the point where I need to figure out whether this will connect directly to this or whether we need to use a different pigtail or whether we're going to have to hardwire it. This one is obviously not where we want to start, so we're going to take this one off. There's this clip right here. You just have to make sure you lift it up. There, so that one comes out just like that. Hopefully this is going to line up. I'm trying to see whether there's an up or a down to it. Doesn't look like it. It looks like it's exactly the same both ways. So that is going to go right there. Make sure it's pushed up hard against it. And then this is going to clip right into here. There you go. So next we're going to test out the light and make sure that it's going to be operational and compare it to the halogen that's already there.
But yeah, it looks more modern, up to date to me. So that yellow, look at me, I'm an Amish buggy coming down the road.
Right now that we've got the right one in, now we've got to change out the bracket on the left one. Clip right there, clip comes up over. DOT, SAE goes on the top, JL goes on the bottom. So I'm going to do it that way. Line it up on the button on one side, line it up on the button on the other side. I know it's not a greased pig. It just feels like a greased pig when you're trying to do this. So the angle on the side right now looks like this. That adjuster will help you change that angle if you tighten or loosen it. It'll change this angle back and forth like that. All right, so this is the first thing we've got to do. These little buggers will fall everywhere and anywhere and get stuck anywhere, and your bumper will eat them. So be careful to the extent you're able, or have a couple extra on hand. If you're thinking about installing a winch and you haven't put LEDs in yet, think about it, because then you don't have to do it this way. Now mind you, I'm not saying it's going to be a lot easier, but you probably can get better angles and move the bumper around, whereas here, if you're a righty, well, there are certain ones that are going to be harder to get. If you're a lefty, there's going to be the other side that's going to be harder to get. If you've got it on the table, you can turn it around so it doesn't matter which hand your dominant hand is. I've only taken out 2 bolts, and my fog light just fell. And if it weren't connected to the connector, which I should have actually disconnected first and didn't, it would have just hit me in the head. The bracket on the inside actually fell out.
That's what I mean, the bolts that are supposed to be holding that on.
So this is going to be an interesting install because this part of the bracket should not have just fallen off. It is bolted to another piece up here that Bill's probably showing you right now, and it feels like the bolts are literally broken off in there because I can feel them out the back. Yeah, they're both broken off, completely sheared, completely broken off. Here's what we found out about having 2 brackets here. This is the original bracket that was on the LED light when it arrived. This is the bracket that we put on because it appeared to match exactly what we needed underneath for our factory replacement. When we took our second halogen bulb out, however, we discovered that there's a bracket piece that looks like this that attaches right here and then goes forwards into your bumper. In our particular case, for who knows what reason, the screws right here and right here have completely sheared off, and the bottom part of the screw is still stuck in the metal. We didn't want to have to drill those out, so we were trying to figure out an alternative to just leaving this in connected by 2 screws, because that doesn't sound like a great idea. So the more we looked at it, we discovered that this particular bracket that came with it, although it's a little bit different, if you look at it, you'll see that that's actually what you need to replace this portion where we've got our sheared screws. And in this case, there's a third hole that we can use a self-tapping screw on, and then we can also attach it on this side with another bolt, screw, whatever it is that we need to attach it. So that we'll have 2 points of connection on opposite sides of the light, as opposed to here we would only have 2 points of connection on this side of the light. Obviously this has nothing to do with the light, but what I want to make sure everybody understands is it's a really great idea to get under your vehicle, see what's going on, and keep your eyes on things. So changing out bulbs like this or changing out lights like this is a great opportunity to try and figure out, do I have rusted sheared bolts and screws down there? Is there something else that's going to be a problem coming up? So keep your eye out while you're doing this so that you can try and address those problems before they become big ones. It is nice that they included both brackets so that when we came into a problem or ran into a problem, we have another solution and another option. There it goes. You do have to turn it not just on accessory, but on to run. Make sure you're on headlights, and then here's your button right here for your fog lights. Fog lights will only run on the low beam, so if you're on high beam and you got your blue button or your blue light up there, turn it off, see whether or not your fog lights work.
But although these appeared like they were going to be plug and play, when we came back out to test them after dark, we discovered that we had one more important step to finish.
So it appears from our experience with these that you can't just plug and play these without having a Taser Mini to reboot and reprogram your computer. So we already have a Taser Mini, it's already installed. In order to use that Taser Mini, you need to first get this setting right here in front of you. It doesn't matter what's on over the big screen, right here. You need to get this down to the radio. Make sure your phone is not hooked up to it because it'll mess with that and you won't get the radio setting. So now that I've got the radio setting, I've also got my vehicle in the run position, not just the accessory position. Now I'm going to hold down the left arrow over here and the cancel button. That should get me to light show. I don't want to do a light show, but that will then get me to all of the other functions in my Taser Mini, and I just need to scroll through to the radio. Here's the lighting. I'm sorry, not the radio, the lighting selections. So I'm going to click on the on-off for the cruise. Now I need to go through and I need to find my fog lights. That is enabling or disabling fog lights. That's not the one you need. What you need is further in. We've already updated to LED headlights. We've actually already gone in and also changed this to LED fog lights, but we haven't reprogrammed it yet. So if you were turning this on and off, you press this button right here. So it's your on and off for your cruise. I press it again, it's going to say yes for LED fog lights. Hopefully then when we reprogram this. So now I'm going to just scroll through the rest of these options. And there's just a few of them. And now I want to click full reboot so that we can reboot the entire system so it'll accept these. Now we'll have a countdown. So we got about 143 seconds that we can just hang out, and it's going to do everything, shut down, restart, and then we'll see whether or not this computer will accept the new LED fog lights. Once that is done,
There it went.
yep. So now it is restarting the program. All right, we have now rebooted. We've turned the engine off. You also have to do 2 sleep cycles in order to reboot everything. So that's what I'm doing now. Turn the engine completely off, everything off. Close the door. It's gone to sleep. My lights are off. And I just want to turn it back on to accessory. Back to run. And I'm going to turn it off again. Didn't turn the engine on. You don't want to turn the engine on. Now we have to wait 60 seconds. And once those 60 seconds are up, it'll go through a second sleep cycle. And then, and only then, should it be rebooted.
We did our best to go out in search of fog for several days after we installed these. We just didn't have any luck. It was the wrong time of year. But what I can tell you is that we have some low beams that have some shadows, and these fog lights completely alleviate that problem. So if you're considering installing some LED fog lights, you might want to add Bicyaco to your list. I just wish we'd had this installed when we were here. Thanks for joining us. If you enjoyed this video, I hope you'll come over to Journey Beyond Overland and check out our library of adventures. But until we see you again, make sure to go out and find your own adventure.